Children are the most vulnerable members of the human community, and, as such, are also the segment most often taken advantage of. Due to this vulnerability, parents and other adults will largely make sure that children are protected and that they are allowed to have a safe and comfortable childhood. Unfortunately, there is an element of society who would exploit this young population in order to gain profit or perverse pleasure from their innocence. Child sex abuse is a problem of immense proportions that has only recently begun receiving the exposure it deserves. The definition of this act covers much more than people realize and needs to be understood in its entirety. Child sexual abuse includes an act of a sexual nature between an adult and a minor, sexual acts between two minors in which one exerts power to force the act, using persuasion or coercion, such as rewards or threats, to engage a minor in any sexual act, and actions that do not involve actual sexual contact but are still sexual in nature, such as viewing pornography, taking pornographic pictures, sexual communications of any type, or forcing the child to exhibit himself or herself in a sexual way. All of these things, either alone or in conjunction with one another, constitutes sexual abuse. Basically, child sexual abuse is any type of physical, emotional, or psychological exposure to acts or displays of a sexual nature. Every law enforcement jurisdiction has different specific legal definitions, but nowhere is any form of child sexual abuse legal. It's well known that adult rape, assault, and abuse are significantly underreported, but when it comes to children, the problem is even worse. According to recent data on child sexual abuse from the Darkness to Light website and victimsofcrime.org, more than 10% of children will face some type of sexual abuse before they turn 18. Girls are much more likely to experience child sexual abuse. Approximately 1 in 6 girls and 1 in 22 boys are sexually abused prior to their 18th birthday. It's estimated that fewer than 40% of these cases are ever reported. One other statistic that will likely surprise many people is that children and youth are more than twice as likely to experience sexual abuse than adults. The problem is that although sexual abuse cases have been decreasing over the past 2 decades, it's not clear whether this is a reporting bias or an actual decrease. Parents and other caregivers may believe that they could spot a child sexual predator if they saw one, but that is very likely a false belief. Child sexual predator statistics relate that in 75% to 90% of cases, the child knows the person who abused them. Approximately 30% of the time, the abuse occurs with a family member. In almost 40% of cases, the abuser is an older minor. Individuals defined as pedophiles account for fewer than half of all cases of childhood sexual abuse. A pedophile is defined as an adult who is sexually attracted to children or minors. In many cases of abuse, the abuser is a one-time abuser who will not legally carry the label of pedophile. Many children will react to this type of trauma in a manner similar to adult victims. The child will often become more fearful, introverted, and depressed. It's possible to recognize the possibility of sexual abuse if the child is more secretive than usual, doesn't want to be touched, has nightmares or problems sleeping, is unusually aggressive, especially toward younger siblings, makes up stories of a sexual nature, and/or draws pictures with a sexual theme. It's difficult to recognize sexual abuse from a single symptom, so the parent or caregiver needs to observe the overall behavior of the child and see how they react to situations. Parents need to make sure that their children feel that they are able to talk to them at any time. Make sure and spend time with your child and cultivate a positive relationship that includes sharing about feelings and experiences. Always tell children that if anyone touches them inappropriately or makes them do anything that they are uncomfortable with, they need to immediately walk away and tell an adult. Children should also know that if anyone, whether another child or adult, tries to force them to do something against their will, they should tell their parent. If a child has been sexually abused, it's imperative that the family seek therapy as soon as possible. This could minimize problems that could occur later in the child's life. Let's review. Child sexual abuse is any type of physical, emotional, or psychological exposure to acts or displays of a sexual nature with a child. Unfortunately, these acts are much more likely to happen with someone the child knows and may very well be with a family member. Children, being more vulnerable than adults, are more than twice as likely to be victims of sexual abuse. It happens more with young girls than with boys, but both can be victimized. Children who have been abused are likely to be depressed, not want to be touched, and will often draw pictures or make up stories of a sexual nature. Parents need to keep the lines of communication open with their children and teach them how to react if someone asks them to do something that they are uncomfortable with.